So I'm going to go ahead and do episode 15 of How They Got Me Fucked Up. This is pretty much to give a backstory on why I have studied communism and socialism, why I completely disagree. Well, I can't say I completely disagree with communism and socialism, but overwhelmingly why I disagree. What I do like about it, which is a few things, but ultimately why it is wrong for society, why it's wrong for countries to adapt. So when I transferred from community college to university to ended up taking my major, which is social work, one of the prerequisite classes was Introduction to Sociology. So within the first couple of weeks of that class, we were studying communism, socialism, feminism, and different thoughts. And so, little backstory, my professor is definitely a communist, completely agrees with it and advocates for it. And he's also a foreigner. And he also teaches at two different schools. And I'm sure he gets paid a good amount of money to teach this thought, or to teach the classes that he teaches. So because it was portrayed to me, I started diving into it. And I was definitely looking into like a lot of the pro-black revolutionaries of the 1960s. So the Black Panther Party was definitely of the communist thought. Depending on who you hear it from, they even said that Martin Luther King had communist ties, but that could also be FBI propaganda. You look at many of the black leaders, especially of the Black Liberation Army or the Black Liberation Movement of the 1960s, many of them were communists. Whether you look at Angela Davis, Assata Shakur, Stokely Carmichael, who ended up being Kwame Ture. Many of these people took on this ideology, and it seems like a reasonable thing because it speaks of this utopia. Karl Marx speaks of, in a perfect world, the government will do this, will provide this, whether it's housing, different economics, healthcare, food, and that sounds great. Even though Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, he ended up becoming a socialist in thought. So we see that's kind of like on a spectrum with, oligarchy, capitalism, socialism, communism, and anarchy kind of being on the spectrum. Socialism kind of sits in the middle. And so when you think of it, it sounds great. And when you think of Bernie Sanders, it sounds amazing. But when you look at the application in different governments, whether you talk about Cuba, Russia, China, and Venezuela, it seems like a great idea, but when it's applied wrong. So many people say, well, there's democratic socialism. Well, Cuba is technically a democratic socialist country. China is technically the same, but when you see that, it's just the reverse opposite of what we have here. So these socialist companies pay these socialist politicians, whether they're Democratic or Republican, to perpetuate big government sponsorship or for these corporations. Meaning, so like Halliburton, which is a defense contractor, private company, they pretty much pay our politicians who advocate for either war or they advocate for other countries to buy our supplies, i.e. what we're witnessing in Ukraine. So we just left Afghanistan. We can't necessarily enter into a new war, especially with America, the population, both sides kind of being done with these 20-year wars, especially after what we've seen in the Middle East, in Afghanistan and Iraq. We got nowhere, especially when you're talking about guerrilla warfare. And you look at Vietnam, we got nowhere, especially when you're talking about guerrilla warfare. So now we are getting pitched Ukraine. So we have to defend Ukraine because big bad Russia is invading Ukraine, and not even looking at the whole entire backstory of why Putin has even said in the first place, like, stop bringing NATO and that bullshit over here. Y'all are getting too close to my country with these missiles. Y'all are getting too close with this alliance. I don't like that shit. And they also come from, well, Crimea, Ukraine, and all these other places used to be part of the USSR, and as part of bringing back the strongness of what used to be the former Soviet Union. And so we support this kind of socialism where it's like we just bankrolled over $100 billion to Ukraine. We're pretty much propping up their whole entire economy, their whole entire everything right now, the same way we did with Afghanistan, in order to bankroll Raytheon, Halliburton, and all these other defense contractors. So when you look at the corruption in our government, what makes you think that there's not going to be corruption in another government, i.e. China? So if you speak out against the government, you will be suppressed, you'll be canceled, may even be imprisoned. You're surely going to be watched. Same thing here. Edward Snowden told us. But when you look at what they have going on, you're like, well, it's still better. Well, you're literally trading one form of hidden socialism in America for more open socialism that we see in China. And this is coming from somebody who's actually, I love Cuba. I love the Cuban people. I love the Cuban culture. I love the Cuban food. I love the Cuban dance. I love the Cuban women. I love their history. But if you go there, you'll see that, wow, this shit is bad. And yes, they have universal health care. And yes, they have a literacy rate of damn near 100%, which is completely better than our healthcare system in certain ways. It's complete, like, ask a kid nowadays to read a book and see if what the literacy rate is right then and there. So y'all are wanting this, y'all are assuming that politicians have good hearts and that you're going to elect 400 politicians plus the different departments, the different bureaucracies, whether you're talking about the EPA, the FBI, the CIA, all these other federal, entities and departments, that all these people who are hired are also going to be that of a Bernie Sanders heart. And that's just impossible. That's what Karl Marx fails to realize, is that there's the human nature. If you give somebody too much power and they're already a terrible person, they're going to do terrible things. Or if you give people too much power, or you give them this ability to get rich while they're in office, then they're not going to have the best interests of the people. So to sit here and say that you want to exchange our system, which is hella corrupt, for another system that's even more corrupt is beyond me. Sanford did the whole prison experiment to show us that when people, this was a fucking fake experiment where these people really thought they actually had power over fake prisoners. And it kind of goes back to the whole, if anybody ever watched The Lord of the Rings, if you get this ring, you're liable to turn into an evil person. So it's like the same thing with anybody in power. And I guess some of the things that I do like about socialism is that in certain ways, it had, okay. So I did say that I'll speak on one of the benefits of socialism. I wouldn't say that I agree with socialism, that I agree with more social programs, because I am more of a compassionate capitalist, meaning that we do have to take care of our downtrodden, whether we like it or not. There are people with true disabilities, physical disabilities, true mental disabilities that need to be taken care of. There are the elderly that does need to be taken care of. We do need to have some kind of public school, even though that needs to be properly monitored. Tax money doesn't go to the right places. Everybody isn't getting an equal education in the public system. It definitely needs to be overhauled, but in that sense, it's great. I love roads. I love bridges. I mean, I don't necessarily use public transportation, but I have when I've been to New York. That seems great. Riding buses, having a subway, metro system. I personally don't use that because I live in the South. So everybody drives everywhere. Even just getting to Food Lion or getting to Walmart, you have to drive. You're not just going to walk. There are benefits. I do believe that, like I said, there has to be some kind of Medicare, Social Security program. Obviously, it's Peter, take from Peter to pay for Paul. So we're obviously reaching into our Social Security program. It's definitely, not matching inflation. It's not keeping up with the cost of living. And, there's a lot of things that's wrong with our system, but those are fundamental things that I do agree with. But do I believe that we should be in nonsense wars? Absolutely not. Do I believe that we should be giving Ukraine $100 billion when we have veterans and other homeless and LA is looking at like a hot mess? Fuck no. Should we be giving these subsidies to like corporations like Amazon and, where they're making money off of us? Fuck no. Do I believe that the Koch brothers should be able to pay the right-leaning politicians? Fuck no. Do I believe that Mitch McConnell's fucking wife, Elaine Chao, is deep embedded with the Chinese Communist Party? So is Joe Biden, and so is his son. No, that's fucking corrupt. But do I believe in a free market space? Absolutely. Which literally means the government, to an extent, has to protect us from monopoly, has to, definitely have antitrust laws and advocate for, these big corporations taking out little corporations, taking out their competition. That's completely wrong. That's uncapitalistic. And ultimately, there's other things like, prime example, should there be a war on drugs, or at least a war on marijuana, when you're now stopping capitalists? So meaning we shouldn't allow private prisons to pay politicians to keep marijuana illegal, when really farmers and growers and everybody else can benefit off of marijuana and hemp. I'm sorry. Most of the Trump supporters that I know down here in the South smoke. The real boys. The real boys and girls out here, not your high-end Republican who has a college degree, who, feels like they're better than a person with the blue collar. But that's neither here nor there. That's a whole different topic. But socialism, sad to say, ultimately is garbage. And even this Fabian socialist ideology that we're perpetuating from the Federal Reserve and from most of our political elites is garbage. And we should be demanding change. We should actually do more research instead of just allowing these people to just infiltrate and run for office. And for us who are truly American, who are truly wanting to see America win, to get back to its glory days, we should really consider getting deeper into politics, finding candidates, becoming candidates, supporting candidates, and informing the public about, hey, this person right here is corrupt. They're bought. This person right here, maybe they might not agree everything. They might be from a different party. They might be an independent party. They might be, something else. But hey, this person has been tested. They have a good heart. They have good intentions. They want the best for America. They want the best for the people. They want the best for our kids. They want the best for, the nation as a whole. So we have to get back to that. We can't just sit here and just, lay down and just be cool with what we have going on when we can, demand something that was once this once was the greatest. And the only thing that we hold now is the highest prison population. And, everything is a crime now. You say one wrong thing, you're going to get canceled. So, with that being said, they're probably not even going to let most of my videos even make the mainstream. But hey, it is what it is. I'm going to keep doing what I'm going to be doing. But this is episode 15. Be careful of socialists. I know it's like it's the way for us millennials and Gen Z, but you really have to do more in-depth research than what some professor or what what your college educated buddy has told you, because the more research you do, you're just like, Mao Zedong was a wild boy. A lot of people died because of the Cultural Revolution. So it is what it is. But episode 15, like, share, subscribe. Thanks. Y'all be safe.